another note, Spring Equinox. What does Spring Equinox mean to you, Deborah?
Oh,
it's
yeah.
The question to you.
Without just switching my brain to that now. For me, it's like, I mean, it's new beginnings. It's a whole new uplifting cycle. I was just thinking, because I do Calendar of the Soul as well, and I do it with colour interpretation with Iris Sullivan, who's over in Maui, and I've been doing it for quite a few years. And yeah, it's that uplifting and the movement of the colours coming up. It's just that whole awakeness and newness and lively and fresh and new beginnings and industrious and everything. It's just so much activity. It's just, it can be just about manic a little bit, really. It's just like there's just so much buzz, from that sleepiness of the winter and and it's that crossing over too, like what's above and what's below, but it's also, for us, it's that middle point of as well, where we connect. So it's still been awake to,
from the darkness to the lightness of the environment.
Yeah, and being conscious in that moment, that then we can also have that transformation within ourselves, because it's not just from the outside, it's from us inside as well.
Yep.
Yeah, with all those growth forces. I've just been doing a pastel just this afternoon before I got in here on that.
Nice. That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like a new birth, isn't it? Whereas the autumn equinox is that kind of almost a death of nature.
Death of the season. And they were getting a rebirth for the new season coming to light.
I
mean, the pureness of the equinox is the fact that we're now going into a space of time where light becomes more than darkness. And then I'm guessing that James put it in a way that it invigorates the sap flow, which is related to blood flow, which is where you come to, Deborah, from within the human body, reaching out with the sap flow of the plants and the energy that invigorates. But otherwise, we are talking about the spring equinox of lifting the horns, and when we put the 500 out with the early spring period to invigorate the soils. So,
It's a time of transition, isn't it? Because the soils are warming, and so the seeds are germinating. So there's this flush of growth and new life. So, I can sense it in myself as well. It's like an acceleration almost, and it feels a bit, it's kind of a bit anxiety attack. It's kind of like, oh,
it is that, isn't it?
In this slow, sort of a slow motion through the winter and turning inward, and now suddenly it's like bursting open. It's a bit overwhelming sometimes, but it's also quite exciting time, new growth and restocking the larder. Just about used all my tomato passata and the last of my pumpkins and things like that. So
we talking about pumpkins, the other day we had an orange one that we'd got from the Hawea feed forest, and it had started to succumb to a fungal attack. I still managed to rescue half of it, but Vicky made a soup. My wife made a soup out of it the other day, and it's the most flavoursome, delicious soup that we've had for a very long time. It was the flavour of the pumpkin was very noticeable. But yeah, it had succumbed to fungal attack. But the worm farm benefits, because worms absolutely love pumpkins and cucurbits, and so it didn't go to waste. It's feeding the worms for a few weeks. So we only got half of it, but some other life it'll get turned into goodies for the garden, no doubt.
Yeah,
Right.
it's about the maximum that they can last, and then they start, doing their thing, which would be rotting down and the seeds growing out of the
Yes.
rotted flesh, so but none of mine ever goes to waste either, because and even the skin I put out for the wax eyes eat that, and then the worm farms get it, and yeah. The only thing with composting, if you put your pumpkin waste in the worm farm, is that you end up with hundreds of pumpkins just popping up all over your garden when you put vermicast out the compost out. But
yeah, although they're easily weeded, they're easily, I mean, if they grow where you want them to grow, then they're all good. If they
that's
don't,
right.
then they become a weed that you just pull out and becomes organic matter.
Yeah,
in its own right.
Yeah.
I have had a few conversations with people that aren't aware of BD just in the last couple of weeks, and they said, gosh, the spring has just come, but I feel like, and it's different people, and they've said the same thing, it's just come so quickly that there wasn't really a transition, and they feel like they're kind of like in shock because it was really quick this year. Like for here, for around Wellington anyway, there just wasn't, it was 1 minute we're kind of really still wintry, and then it just went like a switch went on. There wasn't like a bit of a transition, and you're leading into it. And people have said, wow, it's like there's just, you had to catch up quickly to it because it kind of was running in front of you. You have to quickly catch up to it, that kind of a feeling. Yeah, it's quite interesting. Really. I wondered too, because we've had so many of these awful grey skies that there's just like this big halo of just greyness everywhere. And I think there must be something that for us that we don't sense if we weren't having all this artificial stuff that was going on out there. Like normally you would be in the rhythm of it more, but it's like it's cutting off that sensing of the rhythms of what's happening more than anything this year. And I just wonder how much that might have had something to do with it as well, that people don't kind of like, because normally you look up and you sense and you feel things changing, but there wasn't. And because it's kind of got this grey, just big dome just sitting there. Anyway, that was just a thought I was thinking of. I wonder if that's got people sensing.
That's intriguing, Deborah. I sort of liken it myself. Like I've always lived on the land with growing up on farms, and then I've always worked on the land with being in the viticultural scene. And I find myself almost privileged to actually be able to watch every day go by and actually see the changes all the time. Like when you talk about that sudden change in Wellington, you probably find that's more a city thing where you do sort of the hustle and bustle of concrete towns and stuff, and then all of a sudden, they see all these flowers have popped up, but haven't actually noticed a flower head forming, which is that lead up to the springtime.
Yeah.
Whereas, like with working on the land all the time, I've been, and grapevines are great for it. You sort of from the winter dormancy to breaking the scale to the woolly bud process to the emerging of the bud to the breaking of the bud, and then the developing process from there. You sort of, it might just be me. I'm probably a bit more connected than some, but it is the hustle and bustle, and it's everyday life that. I mean, yourself being BD connected, and a lot of BD practitioners, you take notice of these rhythms yourself. But it's one of the euphorical, the coolness that I find that comes from being sort of understanding the rhythms a lot more.
I understand what you're saying though, Deborah, because I mean today down here in Otago we've got heavy rain, and normally we're surrounded by mountains and hills. And today you wouldn't know there was anything past your fence, it's just grey.
Yes.
So if you can't see something, it's hard to connect with it. So I understand what
yeah. And especially if they're not like you said, but especially if they are like not connected and they're not doing gardening, even not even BD gardening, but if they're not in the garden, they're not seeing those changes and they're just going about their day. I mean, we've had just like weeks on end with absolute greyness, just not one bit of blue sky, just day after day after day. And I think that people stop looking up. I think they don't even notice that it's grey anymore. It's just, you don't have that longing or that looking out or that wonder. I think it just disappears from them, Yeah.
We've had the opposite. We've had the sunshine.
Oh, you're lucky.
We've had the cloud.
Days. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got 25 mils of rain last weekend, and that was more rain than we'd had for 3 months.
Ah.
So it's been very dry down here for a long time, and we knew there was some rain coming. Eventually it equalizes itself. So nature always has a way of equalizing. So the rain we're getting right now is the equilibrium.
Yeah.
So
yeah. We've got beautiful days at the moment, but then saying that, then it will just go totally grey again. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, well, it does slightly interfere with the lifting of the preps when you've got like sheet rain coming down for 2 or 3 days. But I mean, I usually put a heavy mulch over mine, but I don't know if that will
be enough to soak it up.
Well, the ground will be so dry that even if it sinks in, it probably just moisten the soil and make it so that it's not quite so cement-like.
It'll help and enliven everything.
Perhaps, yeah.
Help out the soil biology, soil life, bring it to life right when it needs to, right on spring equinox.
How is it? I noticed this time I may have left it a bit longer for my CPP, and there was lots of worms this time. I mean, they all went kind of like flying into the garden. You can't just nicely. I don't like I was next to the garden and they're all getting going in there. But is it because it's left too long, or what makes the worms come? Where it is, or
I'd say that basically the worms are drawn to the manure because that's food for them. And the longer you leave it, the more eggs they will have laid. Worms reproduce it. I don't know how many hundreds of eggs and things they lay every 3 weeks or something. It's a huge amount that they reproduce. Because they're all hermaphrodites, they can all breed with each other. They don't have to go find a opposite sex partner. So they're good at breeding. And so I tend to, as the preparation is turning, or I'd give it a turn every month or something. And if I can, I'll just hoof out most of the sort of adult worms and put them back into another worm farm somewhere. But that kind of keeps the population down. But if you don't manage it that well, they'll just keep breeding and there'll be more and more throughout the system.
Yeah, it was good the first year, and I did that often and did the same thing. Rachel would come and would take out the big ones, and it wasn't as many, but this year there was a lot of them. But Rachel suggested too that she sometimes takes it out a bit sooner and then puts it in a barrel to finish it off, as opposed to leaving it there and letting the worms come.
Yeah. If you've got something big enough to put it in.
Yeah.
I mean, I make mine in a half wine barrel anyway, but and I know Rachel uses a brick pit, but even in the wine barrel, the worms will get in.
Right.
But if you've got some of those big terracotta, not terracotta,
like earthen type pots,
the glazed pots, that you use for preserving beans and things.
Yeah, glazed on the inside as well.
Yeah. So that I try and put mine in those pots if I can, and then you've got a cork lid or something, and there'll still be worms hatching though, because the eggs, the worms that have been in there,
they go down the bottom, don't they?
Yeah. You know, the idea is to use it before the worms eat it. It's like a race.
Oh, I've got a lot. It's going everywhere at the moment.
Yeah. And you know, you can use it as a seed soak.
Seed soak, yep.
And as a, you know, even a foliar spray. I think some people prefer not to put that on their leaves. I don't know what you think about that, Simon, but
yeah, no, we used to use it. So when I was at Burn Cottage, we used to put it on as a spray out into the general atmosphere. So it used to just go everywhere. Yeah. And the idea there was that it was just adding goodness to the environment, whether it was hitting the plant or hitting the ground. That it was sort of a soil activated plus a biological, just an environment, adding biology to the environment, and wellness with the vitality of the preps. Obviously, that's what the main reason for the CPP is to spread the vitality of the preps that they were encased within. But yeah, it's but it is more as a soil sort of system
application. Yeah, I mean, you can't really overdo it, I don't think. So, you know, even if you've dug a patch for your potatoes, put some on then, and if you've dug in a green crop, put some on then. Every time you move the soil, basically, you could add some. So, I mean, I know it's 20 minutes each time you're applying for the stir, but it's kind of worth it if you can, even once a week, you know, an application. It's a nice meditation for a 20-minute stir.
What if you don't stir it and you just put it in, like if you're doing transplanting and you're putting it in down the bottom, and does it still effective, or do you need to actually stir it?
I think it would still have effect. It's still effective. Yeah, I think the biology gets it increases when you stir it in the warm water. So you're activating it a bit more. But it's quite nice to be using in seed raising mix, or as you say, a little sprinkle in the.
So you're using it in the solid form versus liquefying it. So in the liquefied version of putting in water and stirring it, that's just about homogenizing it with the liquid form and activating it. The idea of that 20-minute stir is to activate to wake up the biology that's within.
Right.
But it's there. So if you use it in the solid form, like Sue was saying, if you're transplanting and stuff, it's there. You're using it in the solid form versus liquefied, trying to pull it into the water.
Yeah.
The energizing is really that whole vortex, you know, that you're bringing in a force, if you like, to increase the forces in it already, and even then you could do it in liquid and then dip the roots before you transplant them, rather than putting it into the soil. But you know, it's still going to have benefit because it's such powerful preparation. So, but you can increase that by vortexing it. So.
What about for the grapevines and that at the moment? What would be good to, because it's only the second year we've been on our place, and all of the whole property's had the same thing all round it. I haven't sort of isolated and done this for that or this for something else. But what about for the grapevines at the moment? What's good to put on them?
A 500 stir in the next descending phase is perfect to enliven the root systems for the flush of the growth that's happening, because they go through that rush of growth from now until flowering, and then they slow down a wee bit with flowering. But it's the perfect time to sort of try and enliven the environment to give them their best growth phase and add CPP to it. But yeah, nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay. I mean, and do you put it like on, because we've got the grapevines are what you walk over? You know, I can't remember that name. Like you walk and their grapevines are above you.
On a pergola.
Yeah, pergola. Yeah, it's like a walkway, and you were just covered with them. So you can do it up above and around down where the root, where it grows from as well.
But the idea is 500 is for soil, as a soil application. So you just put it on the soil.
So it's just around the soil, yeah.
Add it to the soil. The other thing you can do with grapevines or with any fruit tree plants is this time of year in the springtime you can use a willow bark or a poplar bark tincture tea.
Oh yeah.
And that's now's the perfect time. It's a growth. The salicylic acid is a growth promotant. It's sort of related to, has a similar sort of structure to gibberellic acids. So it just helps boost the growth factor of the plant, and gives them a strengthening. Salicylic acid.
Did you say willow bark?
Yes. Is
willow
that
bark? Yeah.
Did you say willow bark? You didn't say equisetum, you just said willow bark.
No, willow bark. Willow and poplar.
Poplar. Oh, that's what it was. I couldn't hear poplar. Yeah. Okay, poplar.
Yeah. And equisetum would be another preparation that if you were using that in your program, that would be a good time to be starting that on vines or anything that might end up with powdery.
Yeah, definitely.
The 508 equisetum, yeah. And I usually add the oak bark to my teas as well, to the equisetum tea. So oak bark has, that sort of is a prophylactic for disease, and has high calcium, so it's quite protective as well. And I've been putting it on my garlic. I have got one grapevine.
Drawing on my experience from Burn Cottage, Shane used to have me putting in the oak bark with we put it in everything, and the idea was the energy, the calcium energy that came from the bark or from the oak tree was drawn into all the teas. We used to go for a stage process. Nettle was the other one that was used extensively. So everything had nettle and oak bark, and then it was just a change of the first two seasonal sprays were the willow bark, or it was poplar, fresh poplar shoots. And the idea there was just that salicylic acid drawn out of it to help as a growth promotant and a strengthening of the new growth. And then we went for a process of using, we used comfrey at one point in time, but there was anytime we did those sort of teas, it was also being wary of what that plant process was. We didn't actually use equisetum because it's considered a drying plant in a dry environment down here in Central. We don't sort of we didn't see a need to dry the environment out anymore, because we were using sulfur and stuff to help with the powdery control. So equisetum wasn't actually used as a antifungal as a drying environment. If it was a wet spring, which we could be leading into a wetter spring at the moment, we'd probably but otherwise go ahead, Sue.
In my mind, the equisetum, although it is astringent, it does have a slightly drying effect. It's more about the holding down forces. It kind of holds down the energies of what would normally be splashing up onto your leaf, perhaps, fungal spores and things. So it's more of a force than a drying effect. But I get what you mean. It can have that.
Yeah, I've actually got some equisetum sitting in the garage here at home that I haven't actually yet made into a tincture for the home garden, but I'm gonna possibly do that this weekend. And actually
I try and put it on twice a month. Twice a month, usually once around moon opposite Saturn and once just before the full moon when there's more moisture. And that's
I know the Reek. I think the Reekin are quite religious in doing it around the moon opposition Saturn. Jeremy Hyden likes to make sure that happens, to try and help with their fungal program, antifungal program.
We don't seem to have any problems with that sort of thing. here. Like we don't have fungal or dust, or grapes were just gorgeous.
Powdery mildew, you get away with it. That's intriguing because in Marlborough, it didn't matter what you like, any grapevine in the home garden used to just. But do you get quite a bit of rain? Because powdery is a dry environment disease. If you get enough rainfall, the rain will actually wash powdery mildew spores away before they become.
But they're underneath the awning as well, you know, like so they're actually underneath. They're not really so exposed, like just straight rain coming down on them, or
because the table grapes, eh?
Yeah,
not wine grapes.
No, not wine grapes.
They might be a species. They might be a variety of table grape that actually has a bit of resistance to powdery.
No, there's two different sorts, but God, we just had such an abundance. It was just like, what am I going to do with them now? But compared to the first year when we moved here, you know, it was a third. And then I did, you know, the BD preps on them, and they're just like, oh my lordy, they were just like, we had to net them all. It was so many. It was, yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, so just the springtime 500s, early spring 500 to activate the soil for your grapevine, and as you would just in general for growing stuff at this time of year. Yeah.
And I think you're okay putting like a couple of applications of 500 on. I know you said, Deborah, that you put one on a couple of weeks ago, but
yeah,
I think as long as you're kind of balancing it with a 501 eventually at some point.
Yeah, I know that's got to come, but then you've got to hurry up because you can't do it when it's too hot in the summer, eh?
Mm-hmm.
You just do it early morning.
Even if it is going to be a hot summer day, it doesn't matter.
No.
Yeah, I've just got it. I thought it was a bit much though, because I had everybody here and they did the stew and then they do my property and then they go and do theirs afterwards. And I thought, oh, I better wait a little while till I get them all to come back and help me do my 501 stew, because it's an early morning one. And a lot of the ladies are a bit older, like some of them are 80. It's hard getting them up in the morning to come and do the stew at that time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I have to make them muffins and stuff to get them here.
You definitely wouldn't want to be doing on a morning where you knew you were doing early morning, but you had that 25-degree heat kicking in, say 10 o'clock already. Then you'd probably be leading into a very heavy drying effect.
Mm-hmm. We planned it out last year more on the calendar and did them, but this year's just been, I haven't been able to keep up with everything, but that's okay. Getting there, we get there. Yeah.
Busy world we live in at the moment.
Yeah, it just seems the more you take on, you know, so yeah. Anyway, but yeah, we've got to do a 501 soon. Yeah.
Yeah, like so the wine grapes 501, we don't focus on any 501 until after the plant sort of starts maturing, until after sort of bunch closure. Then the vegetative growth is starting to slow itself down already, and then it's sort of the late summer that the 501 is sort of utilized to encourage that seed ripening. But
right, I remember you saying that something on one of the other Zooms, so yeah, I'll remember that. I won't do the grapes.
But then it's saying that you got the table grapes, it's a little bit different. But in saying that, like when it comes around to wanting to harvest them, if they look about right, that'd be the great time to just give that extra kick of bricks and extra boost of sugar, as Peter Backus has been pointing out, that his previous past experience and a lot of work that he's done, that it can really make a difference in the sweetness prior to picking. So yeah,
all good things.
You only know if you try it.
Yeah, I mean it's hard. Sometimes it's like because the grapes were so beautiful and we had such an abundance. You sort of think, do I need to do anything? Because it's kind of like they were just so magical. Like, you know, do I just leave them do their own thing? Oh, yeah.
They sound lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, like I said, like table grapes, wine grapes, with the wine grape side of things, the BD, what I've worked with, most of the experience I draw on is the Ben Cottage experience. Prior to that, it was just dips and dabs of different things, and now with Paragon, working with the process of how it's run there. But it is that springtime for the, like, this is for the wine grape, springtimes to get the soil activated at 500, but it's also based on just what Demeter sort of prescribe as well. And then the 501 late season to encourage that ripening process to hurry along and get to its full physiological ripeness. There's no 501 put on earlier in the season. Although I'm saying that, I know, again, leading to what Jeremy Highland has done with the Rican and Jan Johns has done is they use a fair bit of 501 during the season as an antifungal to help dry the environment out, especially the last couple of seasons up in Marlborough where it's been damper. So it's all relative to your region, to your climate, to your intention of what you're actually using it for, and the intentions has a lot to play.
We found last year with all our plum trees that they were a lot later ripening than the first year than we came here, and a lot of them kind of didn't really get to that full potential of ripening, that real juiciness. They were even a little bit more drier ripened, you know. Some of them just fell off the tree. Yeah, so we're going to have to see what we can do this year for them. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got heaps of blossom on our apricot trees, so I think for a good fruit this year. But yeah, they're likely to get frosted, so I'm going to try spraying some valerian, some valerian over them, just when we know that there's going to be a cold spell, and see how that works. You know, just to keep the atmosphere warm around the tree. Yeah.
It'll be intriguing. Do you have a couple? Do you have a couple of trees, Sue? Can you sacrifice one and do a bit of a test to see?
Yeah, I could do it. Yeah, I've got 2 trees, so I could do one and not the other. I'd feel a bit cruel.
Yeah, that's a bit mean.
Run with the faith that it really works, and don't sacrifice any good harvest. But yeah, it was an intriguing. It leads me to an intriguing question that I was asked of today. I was talking about the oak bark preparation, and I love these questions that come up. And this guy goes, "How do you know it works, Simon?" It's like, how do you know it doesn't, though? But I mean, it's an intriguing one. Like, I'm not about to go and spend my whole lifetime trying to prove yes or no. But there is some definite observed science out there from many people. So yourself, even myself, have seen it, that these preparations change how the compost pile goes through its decomposition. That balances out the temperature fluctuations and all the rest of it. So yeah, but I love the question. I love being questioned and quizzed about when you start talking about the preps passionately, and then someone goes, "Well, how do you know it works?" But yeah, I'd always add that question of how do you know it doesn't.
Well, Maria did lots of trials and sort of experiments, and her books have got pictures to show the difference. You know, she did do the not sprayed and sprayed areas, and so other people have done the science on it. you know,
Yeah,
if you need that,
Kalinsko did it way back in the 30s.
that physical proof. But yeah, I think generally you can tell just over time the biodynamic land, the whole land feels different, and it's not just that one prep either. It's not, I mean, maybe if you were only using oak bark, it might have a different feel to the place, but when you're using all of the preparations and, like you say, your intention, there is definitely something happening, because everything we, every frequency we make changes something. So any substance or force or energy that we're manipulating is going to have some effect, I think. So yeah, but it is hard to know. I tried to do trials on a vineyard that I worked on, and there's so many variables, you just can't really, even if you recorded it for 100 years, the weather changes each year, and it can be anything that makes a difference to what's happened. So you need to
no, it just leads to an intriguing question when you get someone who wants to question it. I mean, everyone has their own right to question anything that even works or doesn't work. But yeah, it's I was always, it's one of those ones. I mean, you take it, it works, you believe it to work, and you run with it.
Yeah. The results speak, though. Like, I mean, if you were somewhere that wasn't producing much, and then you started, using the preparations, and then all of a sudden you started getting avocados on your tree, you'd sort of maybe only had one or two before, and now you get like a few dozen. But it's like, well, surely that speaks for itself. I just use those sort of examples when people tell me, and I've got many of them even on this property, but people have say that they take it home and do it, and they say the same thing, like, oh my gosh, it made such a difference this year to blah, 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 I reckon just the results speak. So until you try it, you don't know.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So that's the answer. Don't knock it till you tried it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You can go so far. Because I said that similar thing to somebody that doesn't use BD preparations, but he's got a really good garden and he gets a lot of produce. And he said, oh, I'm getting a lot as it is, so whatever I'm doing must be right. It's like, okay then. Because I was offering him some cow pit and stuff, and he said, oh, no, I said, it's like, okay.
That's right.
Yeah. I think the balance that biodynamics gives, because I mean, I know when you've made a compost and you put that compost on your garden, and you get a real massive flush of real leafy greens, and your crop looks amazing the first year, and then the second year it's used up all that nutrient perhaps in that first year. So unless you keep putting the compost on, so you might have a great garden one year, when you've put some energy into it, but then that depletes. Whereas with biodynamics, I feel like you're continually feeding, building. Yeah. So I think the longevity of biodynamics is important as well as an overall result, and you just get you get that sort of feeling of something being alive. The whole farm organism is humming, rather than just that bed there that you've put some compost on that you've maybe you don't know where it came from, and it's working one year but not necessarily forever.
That's so true.
But then some people do have green fingers, and good luck to them. if they don't try something new, then that's fine. But
looks like we've almost come to a
close.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to raise around the spring equinox, so that might have been worth putting out there?
I think we've pretty much covered everything, really.
Yeah. what needs to happen this time of year, and hopefully some people jump online at some stage. And if this recording works, I still don't know how it's going to not record when I finish, but we'll find out. The powers that be will sort that one out. But no, really cool talking to you too.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Simon and Sue. Yeah.
Thank you guys too.